Hello, everyone. Welcome to tea. Good to have you all. I hope you enjoyed my little bit of humor to start this going. Your own tedious thoughts next 200 miles. I had the thought to do this just before I put the broadcast together. I had to do everything to make YouTube ready, and thinking. Thinking. We think we can think our way out of anything or think our way into anything. And it's just not so. The best stuff in life isn't thought, is it? Love. Um, love. Which is the best thing in life. Just the awe, wonder, just the confrontation with the mystery of it all. We trade that in the moment we start thinking about it. I always love to use the example of you pass by a flower. It's springtime here, and it's springtime, in the northern hemisphere, and it's actually becoming spring-like here. There's flowers that are beginning to appear that weren't even there yesterday, right? They were just a bud, and suddenly they've bloomed. The cherry blossoms around here will be blooming very soon. You walk in a park or someplace where you walk all the time, right? So, when you're familiar with something, you tend to just kind of phase it out. You don't really see it anymore. It's just, whatever. You literally don't see it. Right? Our minds tend to pay attention to things that are moving and things that change. And so if you're walking by someplace and suddenly there's this beautiful flower catches your eye, there's a moment that is pure awe. It's pure bliss. It's pure heaven. When you're just with that, having the experience, recognizing the sheer beauty of it. If then, which is what happens for most people, the mind kicks in and starts describing it. So, oh, wow, what a beautiful flower. That's incredible. I've never seen a flower like that. Gee, I wonder what kind of flower that is. Maybe pull out the phone, take the picture of it and send it to some site that can tell you the species and the like. But the moment you start doing that, you're not there anymore. It always pains me when I see people at events, significant events, maybe even one-in-a-lifetime events, and they're watching the event through their phone, recording it. Now, they're never, ever going to go back and rewatch it. But you'll see this, lines of people with a phone, rather than just having the experience. There's something about the mind that wants to capture things, wants to grab it. Right? It wants to turn it into a concept to be able to manipulate it. And the problem with that is that it takes you out of life. In the moment you see that flower, you are one with the flower. You're not there, the flower's not there as separate entities. There's this mysterious union that takes place. The moment thinking starts, the moment it attempts to grab the moment and overlay conceptual thought on it, you're no longer there. And you can feel it, the bliss is gone, right? And then next time you pass it, even though it's still beautiful, right? You don't see it anymore. You see your concept. Oh yeah, I saw that already. And you don't pay any attention to it. This is the problem. This is the trouble with thought. This is the trouble with thinking. And the other big trouble with thinking is that it's repetitive. Anybody not have repetitive thoughts? You'll get a bonus, but you get your money back, right? I'll refund every bit you've paid for this. That is the nature of life. There's a repetition. But what's interesting about thought and every other form of life And thought is a function of life. It's not a mistake, right? In every other function of life, there's always a gradual change going on. It's always evolving, shifting, sometimes extremely subtly, but sometimes very dramatically. So the nature of life and its flow is change. It's impermanence. It's growth and evolution, not coming from anywhere and not having an ultimate destination, just the flow of change, the flow of the wheel, as it were. Thinking, on the other hand, if it followed that, would be completely harmless. It would just evolve and change and shift. It would hold on to nothing, right? The thought would be there, an idea or a concept we want to hold on would be there for a while, and then we'd let it go, right? And imagine what that would be like. It's not that there'd be no thoughts at all. It's just that they would not be stuck anywhere. And imagine what that would be like if we lived in a world where our politics and our economics, our religions actually continued to change, to evolve, to shift, letting go of what doesn't work anymore. Right? Wow, would that be amazing? But our tendency is to try to capture. It's depicted beautifully and metaphorically of somebody taking a picture of the place they're at, rather than actually be there. I got on an airplane once, a long time ago, before everybody had a camera in their phone, before cell phones, as a matter of fact. And I sat down next to this couple. They were older, probably in their 60s. They were visiting America. They were from another country, and they were nicely dressed. They were sitting there. They were really. It was really very beautiful to watch. And when they sat down in the plane and got all settled and stuff, they pulled out this huge sack of pictures, and they pulled out these photo albums. Right? People used to have things like that, and they had a bunch of them, and they started putting pictures in the photo album, and I couldn't help but notice all of the pictures were them standing in front of the sign that identified where they were. One of him, one of her, and some that had both. So somebody was passing by and they asked them to. That was it. That was every single picture. It was interesting to note that was what was important about it to them. That's thought, wanting to just kind of grab that rather than experience it. And thought gets frozen. The problem with our world now isn't that there's great problems with the world. It's a problem that our thinking doesn't want to change. It does not want to adjust to the reality that we're living in. So, events going on in the world are just denied or twisted or lied about, right? Rather than, oh, we need something new here. This isn't working anymore. Did once, now it doesn't. And so you can see how that affects us. Now, the good news is that when somebody gets stuck in thoughts, they don't know it. And oftentimes when it's presented to them to look closer at their process of thinking and their own flow of thoughts, there can be some resistance to it because we have a lot of emotional attachment to our thinking. We don't want it to change. It feels very destabilizing, even a bit dangerous. Right? And it is dangerous to the way we're normally doing things. Obviously, it's dangerous. We don't want to change. We kind of like things to be the same. We want them to change very gradually. But eventually, you see that it's causing more suffering than it is joy. There's a point at which the balance tip, and the holding on to it is causing more pain than the letting go of it. And at that point, there's an opportunity for consciousness to emerge, for introspection, for discrimination or discernment. And Buddha put it beautifully in the first bodhisattva practice is become adept at distinguishing the perceptions of your own mind, because thoughts get stuck. If you know that thoughts get stuck, you can stand back and look at them and say, oh, that whole line of thinking doesn't work anymore. It's time to replace it. Now, that's easier said than done, because these are habits. They have been ingrained into the nervous system. And you know, the body likes that. It wants things to change very, very slowly, if not at all. And so there will be a momentum behind it. Buddha referred to as the habit energy from beginningless time. The stuff that just kind of grinds along. That's your repetitive thoughts. Now, more good news is, if you recognize that they're repetitive, you've actually already stood apart from them and are looking at them. Then the question is, what do we do about it? Right? Well, the only thing you can do about it is to continue to stand in the place of the witness of them, discerning their quality and or intensity and all of that, but not getting tied into them, not fighting with them, and not going along with them. Now, that's uncomfortable, right? A habit is there. All the impulse in the body is to continue with that habit. You know what the result is going to be, and so you try not to. You stand back and you watch it. But all of this energy inside is wanting to go for it. Go the same automatic behavior that's been going on the entire time. So on one side, you feel the impulse of the trigger to act. You feel all of the energy in the body wanting to act. And there's nothing you can do except sit in the middle and let it play itself out. It will, I guarantee, that if you do that, it will eventually pass. The intensity of it will pass, diminish, and even be forgotten. It'll happen again, right? But every time it happens, if you stand firm in that place, it will get less and less. It'll have less and less influence until, if it comes up at all, it'll just be kind of like it just passing through. And eventually, it won't come up at all. Our relationship to thinking is what the real issue is. There's nothing wrong with thinking. It is what it is, right? This is how it works. And in some instances, it can be extremely valuable. There's, even Atmananda would speak of higher reasoning, which is our capacity to examine and distinguish, right, ourselves. When intellect or thinking turns its attention towards itself, something beautiful can happen. It can begin to see itself from a different perspective and thus liberate it. Thought can be liberated from the mechanisms that are holding it in place, which are not in the thoughts, by the way. There's another level. I call it energetic assumptions. You can even call it the storehouse consciousness, something. Thoughts are not causative. They are a result. Right? But when you learn that you can have a completely different relationship with them, that they no longer have to master you or torment you, nor do you have to change them and fix them and engage with them in any way at all. You simply have to lose interest. And then use the power of intellect to examine those very thoughts, and then turn it towards you to discover, what are you without thinking about it? Without any thought whatsoever. What are you? No reference to any thought. What then do you reference? Ooh, just presence. On that note, I will go say hello to everybody. And once again, and welcome everybody. There's Mary in New York. There's Ava in in Poland. Come on, Mary. Work. There's Lisa, Lifestyle Love Story Lisa, CEO of Homeschool Lisa, and co-founder. There's Robbie in Romania, Rosario in Madrid, Ursula, Madeira Islands. There's Andy in Texas. There's David and Elaine. Hello. Eliza, play on. Hello, Bill. Namaste to you. I guess I got a little laugh off the joke. Yeah, the little laughing guy. There's Qigong Love. Looks like maybe she's in Romania as well. There's Merck in Sweden. There's Facebook user. I'm glad you're here too. Merck, great topic. We constantly try to eat the menu. Our thinking keeps us stuck so often. The nature of thinking, of the thought, the flow of thoughts, it forms patterns, right? It's not really a problem. If you look around, everything in life is the flow of energy in a form, right? That's all form is, right? Energy takes form. The formless takes form. That's how it works. And all of those forms have a certain degree of consistency, right? Things arise, they have a duration, and then they subside. Some things are very fast, some things are longer, some things change very slowly. I didn't look like this, 10 years ago, 71 years ago. there was a time I didn't look like anything. I was just this one little cell that just started doing all sorts of stuff. But thinking is interesting simply because the patterns it gets stuck in, right? We can actually do something about. I can't do anything about, the pattern of energy in my hand, nor do I want to. It's a perfect job. But thought does exactly the same thing. So the need is for us to become discerning of thoughts. That's how we master them. And so, you hit the nail on the head. They keep us stuck as long as we believe them. That's the key. As long as you believe them, you will be stuck with them. So you see, the thoughts don't get you stuck, nor do they stick to you. It's our belief in them that makes them hang around. When that belief is removed, it can take some time. You unplug the fan and it takes some time to wind down, but it will wind down because it's not getting any juice anymore. You don't believe it. This is why questioning, scrutinizing, looking, questioning our assumptions, going deep into our tacit agreements so that we can, is this really true? Is this actually absolutely true? Or is this just something I've been believing and unwittingly and unknowingly? And the vast majority of the time, the answer is yes, that's exactly what it is. It was something that was useful at one time, but it just, why did the world change? It's not supposed to change. and then it does. And we have to stay in sync with it. This is what it means to be, to be master of your own thought. This is what it means to flow. This is the Zen of life. You're just allowing things to be as they are and responding to them as they are, not to our thoughts about them. Things as they are in constant flow. Thoughts can get stuck. The thought gets stuck. What sticks it, I reiterate this, the only thing that makes a thought sticky is our belief in it. It has no hands. It cannot grab you. It has no staying power of its own. It has to revolve around something that is holding it in place with some kind of a gravity. That gravity is your beliefs about it. When the belief changes, the thoughts change. And we've all seen that in numerous times in your life. Hence the need, the absolute necessity of self-inquiry. That's why we have it, so that we get really adept at distinguishing the perceptions of our own mind, as Buddha said 2,500 years ago. Amazing. When a lot of other tribes are running around just killing each other, he was saying stuff like that. Gee, David, anything, could you confirm your email address? Nothing important, but checking that recent emails sent weren't getting through. Support at gpwalsh.com. I'll send you an email later today, and we'll get that. We'll see what happened. So, Priya here from the United Kingdom. Hello, Priya. Facebook user, another Facebook user, same Facebook user. From the UK, Roseanne in Los Angeles. Hello, Roseanne. Dorte in Denmark. So much wisdom. Oh, thank you, Facebook user. Hello, everyone in G in Georgia, USA. Loving this topic. All right. Well, through the queue, no questions. The shortest T with G ever. Hello, Crispin. Maybe you guys don't have any questions anymore, right? And you're ready to start doing your own satsang, leading your own satsang. I'll take it. This and if you don't have any questions, it's okay. Right? If there's just something you'd like me to talk about, that's okay too. Hello, Ida, north of Norway, up there near the top, which is like you're going to head into. You've just had 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night, heading into 24 hours of day. Sylvia from New York City, thank you for this topic. Oh, I love New York City. I lived there 2 different occasions, both in Manhattan and Queens, Brooklyn. I love that place. Do we create thoughts or are, didn't finish it, but I think, do we create thoughts? No. Did you create your hand? Did you create the hair? Are you managing the process by which hair grows? The idea that we create our thoughts, that we do seem like our breath, we do seem to be able to influence our thoughts. But if you really look closely, right? When you look, try to trace back any thought to where it came from. Where did it come from? Can you find yourself there creating it? It's really hard for us to fathom and accept the fact that thoughts pop up out of nowhere. There is no creator to them. They're very ephemeral. Nobody made them. They just appeared. Poof. They just came out of nowhere. And when the thought ends, which is very, very quickly, where does it go? Does it go on a shelf somewhere in your office where you can use that thought again? And the next thought, it may be identical to the thought in front of it or identical to a thought you had 2 days ago, but it's not the same thought. It is just a phenomena that nobody is creating. The influence on thoughts I'm talking about is the relationship we form to them, our beliefs about them, which are sometimes simply other thoughts. So a thought arises, another thought arises, and then another thought arises that says, oh, I thought that, which is just another thought. Even the thought I is just a thought. What is the thought I referring to? Remember, thoughts are representations. They're pictures, words. What's a word? It has no substance in and of itself. It's a word that refers to an object of experience. But the nature of thoughts is such is that the thoughts themselves can become an object of experience. Well, they are an object of experience, but then they can combine and make abstractions, and you get higher in all sorts of levels of abstraction that take you further and further away because the thoughts are not a thing. This is a thing, right? And my thought of it, the picture I hold of it, the name I gave it, right, are all secondary. Like the example I gave in the beginning about seeing the flower and then just having, the moment of oneness with the flower, and then it starts being described and compared and cataloged, right, to be frozen. Which came first? Experience always comes first, and thought doesn't really add much. Matter of fact, it takes it away. It doesn't add much to the experience. It adds nothing to the experience. Your pets get along just fine without thoughts. Totally functional. They don't need them. Neither do we. They're a tool that we have at our disposal that animals don't. A tool for communicating. Marvelous, absolutely fantastic. A tool for telling jokes, for wooing a lover, right? I mean, it's great. They're great. The problem is our relationship with them. The problem is that we have made them more important than they actually are, and the act of thinking more significant than it actually is. Change your thinking so you can have everything that you want. Well, that's a little like trimming the leaves on the tree in order to get it to grow different fruit. You need a different tree. Because it's the roots, it's the whole combination of things that gives rise to those leaves. So underneath all thought is a whole substratum of stuff that is not thought. It's energetic patterns, assumptions, programs, conditioning, response, all sorts of stuff in there that is not thinking, but is driving thinking. It also drives emotions and sensation and other stuff. It's so significant, right, that Buddha talked about it. He called it the repository consciousness. Elsewhere, I heard it referred to as the store consciousness or the storehouse consciousness. It's this place where it's very, very subtle, and it gives rise to a lot of stuff, impulses and conditioning and thought and all of that. So we don't create anything. We are not creators in the sense that we make something that wasn't there before. We are visionaries. If we're really open and free, all sorts of amazing things can come to us, can come through us. But the human mind is not the source of anything. You could say the divine mind is, the Buddha mind is. It is the potential for all things, and it's from there that it arises. And so every thought you have, every word that comes out of your mouth, every word that's coming out of my mouth is not originating with me, with this body mind. And I can look at it and go, well, yeah, it's just happening. It's just happening. It is an utter mystery. So if we come to see thoughts as they are, the first of the eightfold noble path out of suffering, right views, see things as they are. We don't make a relationship with thought that is anything other than what thought actually is, which is a representation. It's a symbolic form. It's a useful way of communicating, and it needs to never be taken too seriously. The thought is not the thing. The map is not the territory. So, does that answer it for you, Crispin? PC 1111. Do thoughts slow down manifestation process? Thoughts, to me, thoughts are kind of the caboose on the train. Right? Manifestation is always happening. The egoic mind wants to take control over that so that it can get things to be the way it wants it to be. And we get stuck with this belief that I won't be happy until things are the way I want them. Boy, if you start to deconstruct that, you have all sorts of things, expectations about the thing, expectations about what it's going to bring to you, feelings of lack, something missing that makes me want it in the first place, and of course the grand pazootie of it all, the I that wants it. And so manifestation is always happening. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about, am I manifesting or not? Yes, manifestation is always happening. You're never doing it. The you think you are is never doing it. The ego is not manifesting anything. The job that makes this spiritual rather than metaphysical is to align ourselves with the nature of things as they are, which means to know myself as I am. If I know myself as I am, that knowledge will manifest itself. You don't have to do anything. We are always manifesting how we see ourselves mostly through the way we perceive things around us, which will be a projection of how we see ourselves, which creates, which literally has us walking through the world, acting out a version of ourselves that is not us. And then, the world we experience will be through that lens, and we say, I'm attracting that. No, you're not attracting it. Right? Think of the universe as this infinite blank canvas that can do anything. Right? And you're not making anything, you're not attracting anything. Things are coming and going constantly. There's this infinite potential everywhere. And what appears to you is completely a matter of your perception. And what appears to you has no existence separate from your perception. Maybe I went too far on that one, but if you concern yourself primarily with knowing yourself, sorting through thoughts, coming to not letting thoughts get stuck anywhere, treating yourself with loving kindness, healing traumas, doing the kind of inner work that releases you from constant ideation, you will experience an increase of quality and quantity in life, and you won't have to do anything about it. If you do it, if you enter into self-examination with the hope of getting a particular life, you'll always have one eye on what you're hoping to get, and you won't be true to the process because it'll be a means to an end. Right? It won't be because I really do want to know myself. I keep sliding down on the chair because that's the only thing worth doing. It will be serving some other master, which is why this is a very spiritual process. It's not metaphysical. Its primary objective is not to improve human life. The improvement of human life is a byproduct of it. It will happen. It can't not happen. When your perception shifts, the world shifts. So pay more attention to what's true. So I'm constantly shifting towards what is true, and I lose my sense of lack, which means I lose that sense of needing to get something or manifest something or have something. And now my attention is completely off the results, and it's completely on knowing myself as I am. Now you are truly wholeheartedly on the spiritual path. And it's like nobody gets in a boat to make a wake. You get in a boat to go somewhere. In the process of going somewhere, you're going to make a wake. The boat is you. The heading is full self-knowledge. The wake is the manifest world that will correspond to your journey and will bring you things that will aid in the journey. It will aid you all the way up to Buddhahood. Does that help, PC 1111? Hello, Rita. So nice to see you. Mary Sykes. I am reading the book, I Am That. It's quite a read. Oh, indeed. I find I have to read little bits at a time. Is that unusual? I think I mentioned this before, but the first time I read that book, um, it took me 2 years to read it. I'd read a couple. I'd read a couple of sentences, and I'd be so blown away. I would have to just sit with them. Maybe another day, a couple hours, maybe a day before I do it again. So it was like a paragraph, a couple sentences, maybe one of his little dialogues with somebody. It took me a long time to get through the book. So yes, it's not unusual. It's exactly what's supposed to be happening. It's not genuinely spiritual books are not about learning. They're not about the acquisition of knowledge. Exactly the opposite. It's about getting rid of knowledge. It's about getting rid of cashing in, right? Cashing in the knowledge that is purely temporary and relative, which is where it gets stuck, and replace it with the knowledge that is transcendent, which is like no knowledge, right? In Zen, they would say the knowledge that is no knowledge. And that's the mission. And so taking your time with it, just when something grabs you, you ponder it, because it's not something to acquire. It's not a bit of information I got to remember that. The whole point of it is to completely alter the framework, the groundwork of your thinking, so that it finally lets go, and you step into that place which is beyond thought, which is where Nisargadatta was talking from. So yeah, take your time, no rush. You told me you told me how to say your name before. Talissa. Talissa? How can we address a feeling of waiting for something, but you don't know what it is? Oh, I like that. A feeling of change that's a little disorienting, despite things physically being the same. Yes, but you're not. Yeah. So it will be disorienting. There'll be a lot of feelings of disorientation as the sense of self merges more and more with the self, with the true self. Because remember, we orient ourselves through our beliefs, through our assumptions, through our sense of identity. I when I go to the store, this is who I am at the store, right? But as that begins to shift, every place you go, right, it is like, well, who am I going here now? So yeah, it's going to be disorienting. It's okay, because this is not a disruptive process. It's a very gentle one. And you'll be disoriented, but it'll reorganize, right? It'll reorient itself. And then just, again, it'll disorient a bit more. This is just part of the process of losing the false sense of who you are. Now, the feeling that of waiting for something, but you don't know what it is, that's an interesting one, right? This is really the feeling of the seeker. We're seeking something. And the good news, really good news, is that if you don't know what it is, you're open. What happens for a lot of people is they're waiting for something, and they don't want to sit with that discomfort long enough, because immediately the mind's going to say, oh, I know what it is. You're waiting for Godot, or you're waiting for the man of your dreams. You're waiting for the neighbor to bring back that tool, or whatever, right? The mind will try to throw something on top of it. But if it is, and sometimes that's all it is, but sometimes, in this case, it's not. It's deeper than that. There's like, okay, this feeling of wanting has been here. And even though I've had other things that I wanted, it's still here, or waiting. What am I waiting for? And that's where you ask the question, and you ask it inside. Your mind will want you to turn outside to try to find, okay, what one of these things am I waiting for? But if instead you turn inside and go, there's this feeling of waiting for what? What am I waiting for? Right? What is it? Right? And really dive into that feeling, the feeling of seeking. Right? Because the seeking too, it's like always out there. So what am I waiting for? Be with that question thoroughly. Because eventually you'll find that what you're waiting for is you. And that this is simply the whole energy of the human being turning back towards its source. It's been outward focused for so long, it's now turning backwards, thinking, what are you waiting for? What's this all about? Thinking still, there's this idea that somehow there's something that's going to happen, right? Well, the something that's going to happen is that you're going to become you, because it's you you're waiting for. It's always ourselves we're waiting for. But because of a lot of different things, we've come to the idea that something from the outside is going to be the magic bullet. And it isn't. You're the answer to all your questions. Does that help? Tealisa? I think I said that right that time. Plan. Could you talk about free will? Do I have a choice? Oh, free will. I could say blanketly that there's no such thing. But that wouldn't be complete picture, because there's the experience of free will, isn't there? Everybody has the experience of free will. You know, when I choose something off the menu for dinner that I want that night, or you know, I decide to go to this movie or watch Netflix or read a book, it appears as though I'm making choices. So on a conventional level, this is really important. On a conventional level, to say, yep, there's free will, you can choose this or this, it's all up to you, here are all your options, that doesn't cause any suffering. So it's not an issue. We don't have to dismantle the way things are. Buddha was really careful about drawing a distinction between relative or conventional truth, just the everyday stuff, and existential truth, the ultimate truth. The only time he made the statement, the only thing I have ever taught is suffering and the end of suffering. So he was not interested. There was a great philosopher? Yeah, there was one time a really great philosopher, in Indian philosopher, came to and asked him if he taught. Do you teach that there's no self? And Buddha said, no. He said, do you teach that there is a self? Buddha said, no. This is and the guy was just like confused. I guess it went back and forth a little bit, and he eventually left. And Ananda, who is his Buddha's personal assistant, said, well, of course you teach no self. Why did you tell me you didn't? And he said, because he just wanted to have more stuff to engage in his mind. He wasn't interested in alleviating suffering. Now, that's very powerful to hear. There's nothing wrong with our conventions. So yes, in your everyday life, you can say, I choose this, really I want that, you got to decide, and things like that, and it's quite all right. But let's look deeper. Let's really look at its nature. And the overhead that comes with free will is the sense of being a separate self, making choices. And that sense of self does create suffering. So free will, when you are born and you go into your family, you have no free will. You're just a little animal, basically, a little hairless thing, right? That is acting out of its impulses, right? You get picked up and taken wherever it is you have to go. You can't take care of yourself in the slightest. There's no free will there, right? As we get older, we become more and more conditioned. The sense of choices we have to make are completely conditioned by the culture in our family and all of that stuff, right? So we're not really making any choices. The conditioning gets into us deeply enough that I think I'm choosing something because I want it, but it's only my conditioning. I've never really asked. I've never really probed that. Now, as you begin to become conscious, you begin to scrutinize these things. You begin to discern between the conditioning and what's actually me. Something else takes place. There's something opens up where suddenly different choices can be made, right? Because you're now conscious. But if you look really closely at that, the different choices that are emerging are simply because there's a different sense of myself there. I'm not caught in the same patterns anymore. And you'll notice that when consciousness emerges, there's an attempt to choose always according to the highest. So it isn't really a choice anymore. You're reaching for the highest truth at all times. In the relative circumstances, I'm now reaching for, I'm reaching for love over hate, right? Now, is that a free will? Well, in a sense, yes, you could choose, but nobody would choose hate who wasn't ignorant. The moment you become conscious, you can't choose it anymore. So if you really look at it all the way up to just knowing the full truth, the truth is the truth. When we submit to the truth, all of our choices are truth. All of our actions are truth, right? There's no you anymore. And so you can see really up and down the entire line, free will is just a concept. It's just an idea that's been laid on the fact that choices are being made all the time there, but nobody's really making them. That's a tough thing for us to grasp. But if you look at if you look at the actual makeup or mechanics of a choice, two ways have to go. Maybe a little debate goes on, and a choosing thought emerges. Again, it's like I said to Christmas before, you didn't create that thought. It's just a choosing thought. That choosing thought comes with, this is the way. The whole body mind starts to act accordingly. Energy begins to collect behind it. And a few thoughts later comes the thought, I chose that, which came later. You can't say I chose that before the choice is made, can you? Which means the choice just happened, and then I took credit for it later. That sense of I took credit for it later. And you really look at the whole thing really closely, you'll see it's all just happening. And even the thought that says, I did that, right, is just another thought that emerged. And that I doesn't exist. What it's referring to is just another thought. And you are the one witnessing all of those. In fact, they are all arising out of you, but not as an act of will. They're arising out of you as the self, because everything arises out of the self. Everything derives from the self. Everything is an appearance of the self, because the self alone exists. Everything else is an appearance of it. So there's my little discourse. Oops, on free will. Some more. Running out of water here. I hope that helps people. Just remember that, our experience is I'm making choices, and in everyday life you can refer to it that way. But we just decide to look a little bit deeper. Hello, Peter in Italy. Good to see you. Wouter in the Netherlands. Crispin, sometimes I ask myself, I wonder what the next thought will be. And then there's only stillness. Beautiful. The stillness is always there. The thoughts come and go. Even the thought, I wonder what my next thought is going to be, is a thought. Nobody knows what their next thought is going to be. So how can you possibly think you created it? Hello, Bob. I was wondering why it's sometimes so hard to stop and change energetic beliefs and behaviors that are painful and disrespectful towards ourselves and others. Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah, it's hard. They're hard because they're habits, right? Ask somebody who's tried to quit smoking or lose weight. They're habits. We get into habits. Our nervous system likes habit. There's all sorts of chemicals going on, right? That give you a reward, right? When you push the lever, you get the cheese, right? And the most kind and loving thing to do is to accept yourself as you are, recognize the fact that this is hard, that I want to stop it and I can't. I don't seem to be able to. And then give yourself a nice hug, because this is what it means to be human. And just commit yourself to the process of freedom, which means loving yourself, right? It means really embracing yourself as you are. Starting with, I have these behaviors and I don't want them anymore, right? Okay, well now, what am I going to do with that? I can make it into this quest that I have to do, which will make me suffer until I succeed. And of course, the suffering just exacerbates the whole process and makes it seem even worse and makes it harder. Or I can recognize the situation that I'm in, and that this is an opportunity to go deeper into myself, so that the goal becomes, how can I use this to know myself better, to be more loving, to be more open, to be more forgiving of others? How can I use that for this? And so the emphasis is put there, into the opening of your heart, rather than trying to accomplish something. See, when you start to accomplish something, you take what is the unpleasant or the undesirable behavior, and you turn it into an entity that is fighting with you. So now you're like fighting, but there's no entity there. No matter what it is simply a habitual pattern of thought, feeling, and sensation, and reactions to things. So you pull out the magnifying glass. Okay, what was it that triggered this? That's how you get to the energetic beliefs or assumptions that are underlying that. Remember, the nervous system is not sentient. It's not intelligent. Right? It functions intelligently because it's reflecting the intelligence that is you, that is the consciousness that is inhabiting it, right? that is working it. So somewhere along the line, there was a circumstance that created enough of an effect on you that your nervous system put into place particular kinds of responses so that it could adequately meet that circumstance and keep you safe. However it needed to do that. Number one job, keep you safe. So however it needed to do that, it would, whatever options it had available, it took that one. Now, it gets stuck then, right? It believes or assumes that the world is always going to be like that. So the next time that happens, the same reaction is going to take place. And that's what you're running into. You're running into the program. Right? Recognize that it's a program. And then let yourself off the hook. Okay, it's a program. I know it's a program. Thank God I know it's a program. There was a time when I didn't question it at all. It's just me, right? This is the way I am. Oh, it's not the way I am. It's the way my nervous system was trained. That's a very different place to start from. And so now you can treat the nervous system, treat this particular program pattern like a rescue dog. It's misbehaving, not because it wants to, but because it's afraid. It feels it's in danger. And so what would you do with the rescue dog? Oh, you wouldn't yell at it. You wouldn't try to, send it to a self-help class or anything. You'd start just pouring love and affection and attention on it, right? which would create such an inner space of safety that the natural tendency of the dog to be loyal and loving and fun and run around and play will reemerge because it's safe to do so. You don't have to make the nature of that dog come out. You have to create an environment where it can. And this is exactly what we're doing with ourselves. And so when it's hard to stop and change something at that level, you go, wow, this is hard. Because guess what? It is. This is what it means to be human. Everybody gets this shit. Nobody's exempt. Nobody gets out of childhood without it. And other events in our life as well. So if we totally embrace our humanness and say, yeah, this too, this is part of it too. Notice how much weight it takes off your shoulders. This is just, okay, this is happening. Nobody's really responsible for it. This is the way human life works, right? Blame and praise, successes and failures, smart stuff, stupid stuff. This is what we get here. This is what it's about. And open your heart to it. Use it as an opportunity to open your heart even more to yourself and even to the nervous system that is in the shape of a rescue dog. If you keep thinking of it like a rescue dog or a terrified child, your heart will open to it. It can't help it. Right? And you'll stop beating yourself up for stuff that you didn't do. You're not to blame. Right? And if you do something and it's disrespectful towards others, you naturally regret it, right? And if you can, you say, "Oh man, I'm sorry, my bad. I completely take that. That's no way to treat anybody," and then you let it go. Don't turn it into a quest, a witch hunt, right? To try to find what's at the root of it. It'll come up. You create the safe, loving environment. The nervous system will either throw the behavior out without even consulting you because it doesn't need it anymore, or the real story of where it came from, the energetic assumption, everything that's behind it will unfold to you. But of course, I'm lazy. If it can do it without telling me about it, I'm fine with that. I don't need to know. I just need to create the space. You do what you need to do. If you need to tell me, fine. But I'm not waiting around for the sequel. Does that help, Bob? So good to see you again. Kayla Agando. I'm so grateful I found you. I'm so grateful you're here. Andrew Robinson. Can you clarify what Nisargadatta meant by the I am? I keep thinking I'm getting close, but never quite grasp it. This chair is slippery. I keep going down the chair. But other than that, I like it. And believe it or not, I got it at Salvation Army for $4, $3.95, and with my senior discount, it was like $3.50. So when Nisargadatta uses the term the I am, he uses it actually in a couple of different ways. I mean, even the title of the book, I Am That, right? He's pointing towards that which was there even before there was a sense or a thought, I am, right? I mean, before you could say I am, right, you would have to exist. You would have to be, right? And so prior to any kind of an experience that could be had, you have to be there. And in order to have any kind of an experience, you have to be consciously aware. You have to exist and be conscious. And so he would make the distinction and he even used consciousness as being something secondary to what he would just call the absolute, which is beyond it's inconceivable, inscrutable, ineffable. You can only say, I am that. That's it. You can't know what that even is. So he would then use the word I am to refer to the sense I am, right? The experience we all have. When I know myself, I have thoughts about myself, the words I am. But you can go beyond the words just to there's a experience of being, isn't there? If there's an experience of being, something's experiencing it, which is beyond even the I am, which is the sense. The sense of being sits on top of the reality of being. Now you can't really separate them. So it's not like you get to this place where it's completely, well, yeah, you do, completely empty. But it's not as if the state and of the formless, the unknowable, and the state of the known, the and form are two. They're not. This is how the absolute appears, its own knowingness. And so the absolute is beyond all knowing, but when it appears, it's the sense I exist. It's the knowledge I am. And notice it's the knowledge I am, which is prior to me saying I am, isn't it? I know that I am. Everything knows that it is. Every sentient being knows I am. You know, same name, basically. The mosquito, it doesn't matter what it is. There's a sense I am. There's the essence, just the root of experience. Right? Om, right? The seeing of silence, the experience of stillness before any other manifestation takes place. And all the manifestation arises out of I am. Look around. Everything is I am. Everything is I exist. Right? My little jug here. It used to be filled with something to drink. Right? It is the manifestation of existence. Without that absolute existence, nothing would be. It is the principle. And it gives rise to the infinite variation and impermanence, which is the law of the universe. The universe is impermanence. I don't know why science doesn't grasp that. Because everything is constantly changing. It's a law, you know, as much as gravity or any of the other forces. It's a law, impermanence. It's essential to all life. But that which is permanent, which does not change, is outside of time, can't be perceived. And so it is this dance between the absolute and the relative, which again are just terms we give, because the reality is you can't say one or the other. I've just created a duality where there isn't one. It's not two. Existence and non-existence. It's beyond even that. So I am is just that sense of being, and behind it is the fact of your being, which is silent. It's just you. Right? You are there. And it's nothing, and of course you know it, right? But it's not a knowledge, it's not a thought. It's a different kind of knowing, isn't it? It's a Vedantic knowing, it's jnana knowing. So you can't get close to it. You say, I'm getting close, but never quite grasp it. You can't grasp it. You're it. The attempt to try to grasp it is to attempt to try to objectify it, make it something you can perceive. Right? You're it. Your own existence is it. That knowingness is it. And it's nothing that can be grasped. It's just known. Do you know that you are? That's it. That's the I am. It's not a thing out there. It's not an abstraction. It's not a state you arrive at. Do you know that you are? Is that not the I am? If that isn't, I don't know what is. It's very personal. I'm kind of reluctant to use that term, but it is. It's me. Oh, right, it's me. Is this helping, Andrew? Everybody? PC 1111. Yes, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Mary says, I started reading I Am That a while ago and came back to it, and wow, it is something I can't even word or put into words. Yeah. Fantastic. Yes. It rocked my world. Sorry about that. I hit a button and everything disappeared on me. Oh, wow. Okay. Let's see. Mary went to Me23. Namaste to you, Facebook user. You are the answer to all your questions. Love that. Yes, it is. You are who you've been waiting for. You are what you have been wanting. That's really, we all want to just be ourselves. That's what we all want. Because we were not really allowed to do that. That's kind of the existential crisis we've all gone through. We've searched out elsewhere. We've been looking at everywhere else to find that happiness. And the whole spiritual process is turning back towards yourself, going past all the beliefs and assumptions and stuff that made us turn in that outward in the first place, to come back home to who we really were. So, Talissa, wow, that's beautiful. Thank you. The name's Talissa. Talisa. Oh, Talisa. 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 Okay. Talisa. Hopefully I won't forget again. Thank you. Lisa, without the ta. Oh, the false choice. Yeah. Demon Eileen. If mind is a localization of consciousness through which infinite consciousness knows the world, or an aspect of its infinite being, can the finite ever know or have a sense of the infinite? Or the infinite have a sense of it, know the finite? Many thanks. The terms infinite and finite are useful so that we have something to compare to, because the infinite can't be known, right? It is beyond and anything that can possibly be known. Anything known would have to be in contrast to something else. It has attributes. It's got shape, boundary, form. Whereas the infinite cannot have any of that. So what is the infinite? The infinite is simply me. That sense of my own being doesn't have any boundaries around it. So that's it. And going beyond that, you see that the infinite and the finite are actually not two. There is neither infinite nor finite. In dimensionless and the timeless, which is the self, there is no dimension whatsoever. There is no finite. Right? Everything that appears within the infinite is the infinite. So when I look at the flower, you see the infinity. That's how infinity is known. The infinite possibility of all things. And the flower is actually made of consciousness, which is the infinite. So the finite and the infinite, we find, are just words. They're just words useful for conversation, and then you go beyond them, and there is neither finite nor infinite, no absolute or relative, no existence or non-existence, no Buddha, and no deluded beings. So you can go beyond it. You can go beyond it. Because if you say that can the infinite know, well, then the infinite would have to be engaged with something other than itself, and which means it wouldn't be infinite anymore. So that kind of knowledge, no. Does it know itself? Absolutely, it knows itself. And how do I know that? Because I know myself. That's it. That sense of I am is it. And the knowing of it, well, that has to be the infinite, because that's the only consciousness there is. So the knowing of my words right now is the infinite. That which is hearing me right this minute is the infinite. It can't be anything else, because that's the consciousness, the point of cognition. Right? And that consciousness, there's not more of them. Even the sense of the localization of consciousness is only an image appearing to consciousness. There is no actual localization of consciousness. It's just an appearance. If I put on VR headset, I will appear to be localized somewhere and go all sorts of places, and I haven't moved a bit. And you see that localization isn't real. So it's all just perceptual. It's all just what's being perceived. You are the infinite consciousness, and in the infinite there can be no localization. Not as an objective fact, only as an experience relative to everything else. And it's always relative to everything else. Anything you have in the world, the tiniest blade of grass cannot exist without the rest of the universe. It's one infinite manifestation or expression. So there's not even two. So you don't even have a world and planets and all of that. You don't even have the absolute and the relative. They don't exist. It's completely conceptual. Did I get it for you, David and Elaine? Fun. That's a fun one. Mary says, I needed to hear your answer to Bob. We can be so hard on ourselves. I have been. We can be so hard on ourselves. It's just part of the way we were all trained, that, especially in this culture in the West, right? It's all individual responsibility. It's all your fault. If you're a failure, it's your doing. If you're a success, it's your doing, the self-made man. It's just all bullshit. Okay? And so we get this idea that anything goes wrong, I'm to blame. And then the law of attraction comes along, and for all its good intent, makes it even worse. Right? Oh, I've attracted this into my life now. And now we're even afraid of our own thoughts. Oh, good God. It didn't start with them. It started with some other metaphysics that was not properly understood. But you let yourself off the hook. This is the human condition. We all ended up with this existential trauma as a child. It's the human condition. Nobody, it's without it, we wouldn't have the human condition. And the human condition is the appearance of the reality. It is this middle way between this incredible range of opposites. And when you see Christ on the cross, that's what he symbolizes, the center point between this incredible reign of opposites, heaven and earth, the past and the future. The same thing was true of the Buddha. He took the Bodhi seat on the earth, one hand pointing down, the other pointing up. It was the intersection of all opposites. That's the metaphor behind sitting under the Bodhi tree. So where was I? Yeah. So the very first thing I do with anybody is let you off the hook. Lisa's told that to me numerous times. You keep letting me off the hook. Yes, of course, because nothing can heal while we're beating ourselves up. It's love. And how do you love? Well, you see things as they are. You recognize, well, this is what you get with life. What do I do with it? And my feeling, we have two choices: close our heart or open them. You see a lot of people closing their heart, shutting down, lacking empathy, just completely ignoring people and suffering, and creating more suffering in the process. Something has to come to break that open. So let's just choose to have an open heart and treat ourselves the way we treat a rescue dog, some animal that was hurting. Right? You simply wouldn't be yelling at it or calling it stupid. You would just do anything you could to help it. Let's be that way to ourselves and to each other, and we'll transform the world. So let's see. Thank you, says Bob. You're so welcome, Bob. Oh, Lisa, is it fair to say that suffering, to suffer, is a program? The nervous system is running the suffering program, or is suffering a result from having conditions and programs? Well, the nervous system, the program, does Siri, if you insult Siri, does she suffer? There's nobody there. The nervous system is just the program. So suffering is all in you, in human consciousness, in the human mind. So it's all our relationship with the programming. If I'm fighting the programming, or I am living the programming, not realizing that it's a program I'm living, I'm suffering. And there's all sorts of things that are inherent in human life that we cannot avoid, right? Pain, loss, grief, birth and death, disappointment, disillusion, failure, old age, death. It's unavoidable. This is what we have to come to terms with. Right? And so when we look at it in terms of the programming, we see it's simply the functioning of human life, and it doesn't suffer. It's just a program. And it can create pain, it can create pleasure, all sorts of different things. So how are we then relating to it? How we relate to it, what meaning we give it, is what creates the suffering. And the upside, the light side of suffering is that poses us constantly. Look around, suffering, it's the human condition. There's nothing more common. Every human being on the planet knows suffering. Everybody loves the blues, right? Why? Well, because it put into voice the suffering of an entire people, which became an art form that transformed the world of music. Suffering. What did we do? What do we do with the suffering? Open your heart. Don't try to fix it per se. That's a complicated one to say. We should always do whatever we can to alleviate suffering. But in order to alleviate suffering, you have to accept suffering, right? The first noble truth, there is suffering. The second, there's a cause to it, and to vigilantly try to find out what that cause is. We think suffering happens because I didn't get what I want, right? Well, that can either be suffering, or it can be educational, or it can be simply a momentary reaction that doesn't stick, or it can turn into something you carry around, bitterness, anger, hatred. So our interaction with life is always the Zen. It's sitting on the cushion. It is the koan. What am I going to do with this? Am I going to love more, or am I going to close my heart off? And so suffering serves a purpose. It's forever posing that question to you. Are you going to open your heart or close it? So suffering is always in the human consciousness, human mind. It's never in the body itself. And no program suffers. It can't. There's nobody there. It has to be you. So what do you do with that, huh? Sean, I recently felt like the I am refers to you. I am you and you are me. Flow. I am you, you are me. I am you, you are me. Backwards flow. You are you, I am me. Yeah. Yes. But don't let that become a thing in your head. Really ponder it. Stop for a second. I am. I say I am. He says I am. She says I am. Everybody feels that I am. What is that? What is that? We're all feeling the same thing. Is it the same thing? Are we all just feeling the same? Like Jung's, collective unconscious, it just happens to be the way we all behave? Or is it actually the same? Now, there's no way you can know that because you can't step out of your I am, get into somebody else's I am and see, oh, is it the same? But I think if you just sit with it long enough, you see that it can't be any different for anybody else because it's primal, it's essential. It doesn't have any moving parts. It doesn't have different flavors that somebody else could experience it differently. It must be the same thing. I guess all those spiritual teachers weren't kidding. It's one consciousness. Don't let it become heady. Don't let it become heady. Don't let it stay there. Bring it down. The feeling I am. So that you can then you can realize that you are me and I am you. And at the same time, you're not me and I'm not you. There's an individual manifestation here, but the essence of it, the substance of it is identical. It's exactly the same. And now you're in touch with the mystery of this infinite one that can also be infinite many and never lose its essential character as one. Mary Sykes, is it possible for the nervous system to override helpful attempts? Well, the nervous system is a habitual machine. It's a program. It will just keep doing what it was trained to do until it gets trained to do something differently. So, at first, a helpful attempt to try to change, like, an unhealthy behavior or something, your nervous system is going to try to override. It's going to do everything it can to because it's stuck in that pattern. And it believes to disrupt that pattern will cause it danger. And so it's invested a lot in it. But it is just a machine. There's nobody there trying to override helpful attempts. You're just fighting against a current, right, that has been going for a while, and you're trying to change the direction. You can't change the flow, but you can change the content. You can change the direction it's going in. But it's not going to be immediate. These things almost never happen immediately. Sometimes, but so little that you should just say no. It never happens immediately. It will pop up. It'll pop up again. It'll try to override it. How do you deal with it? Stay conscious. You have to stay conscious. The only way it can succeed is it drags you into unconsciousness, where you're identified with it, or you're identified with the one trying to fight with it. I've got to overcome this. That's a battle you can't win. That's also part of the identity. Have no relationship with it whatsoever because there's nothing really there, just a pattern. So don't establish a relationship with it, either fighting it or falling into it. Stay conscious. Stay in the center. Stay in the middle. Where are you? I'm in the middle. Thanks, GP. You're welcome, Andrew. You got it, G. Beautiful answer. Thank you. Oh, great. Great. Jacqueline Garou. Love you, G. Love you too, Jacqueline. Oh, wow. Lisa, that helped by using Siri as the example and then by replacing the emotion. I see how we relate, what meaning we give it. Oh, yes. And suffering serves a purpose. Thank you. Yes, you're very welcome. It is the meaning we give things. Yeah. When I give something meaning, right, it has no inherent meaning. Nothing has inherent meaning. Right? It's the meaning I give it. Right? Are you tall, short, medium? Without comparing it to something, you can't know. You know, I'm a shrimp. If you put me in on a basketball team, right? Put me in a band of pygmies, and I'm a giant. Right? What am I? None of the above. I am nothing at all. Everything derives from the comparing of it. So everything is the meaning I give it, and I will either know happiness or suffering based on the meaning that I give it, which determines the relationship with it and how I interact with it. If I see that it's just Siri, right? These programs that are coming up with me, they may be distressful, they may be unpleasant, right? But there's nobody there. I'm not going to give it any meaning. I'm not going to give it anything that it doesn't actually have. I'm not going to project on it characteristics that it doesn't have. and if I don't project on it, oh, I don't suffer. I experience it as it is. Now, the experience of it may be painful. It may be difficult, but I'm not going to add anything to it. I'm not going to make it worse. Lisa. Okay. Sizvi. Hi, GP. Who gets enlightened? What is the connection between body and mind? Wow. I wish I knew you better than I could formulate the answer more particularly, because it really, the answer to that question is really depends on who I'm talking to. So I'm gonna put it into the absolute. Who gets enlightened? Nobody. Enlightenment is the realization that there is no person, and that nothing has been attained, nothing has been lost. So Huang Po, a 13th century Zen master, said, all the Buddhas and all the sentient beings are nothing but the one mind, and nothing else exists. There is no Buddha. There is no deluded being. He goes on to talk about the overcoming the mistake of there being any substance or reality to the difference between enlightened and deluded. They're both concepts projected upon experience. Experience is neither enlightened nor deluded. It just is. Every quality we give it, like he's an enlightened guy, he's not, right, is pure projection of the mind. Right? They don't exist. There is no Buddha. There is no Mara. There is no God. There is no devil. These are all concepts projected on what? The experience. And what is being experienced? Yourself. They're all concepts projected on yourself. From here, you can see the connection between the body and mind is there is no connection between body and mind, because in connection, there had to be two. There's only mind. Mind with a capital M. Mind in the way Buddhists used mind, not in the way we most often use it now, which refers to the psychological mind, or thinking and thought processes and beliefs and that sort of thing. When you hear the Buddhists talk about the one mind, they're talking about pure consciousness, pure awareness. And so everything is mind. There is no such thing as a body. It is simply a concept projected upon experience. You don't need that concept. You're experiencing all this stuff, and there's a thought that says there's a body here that's experiencing it. If you look closely, you'll find you don't experience a body. You experience a bunch of what we call sensations. And there's a thought, an assumption that those sensations are originating from a form. But you don't see a form, you see sensations, right? Look at any of those sensations and tell me if in the sensation itself there's proof indisputable evidence that that sensation originates in the body, in a body that exists independently of the sensations. You only experience sensation. And if you only experience sensation, that means sensation by definition is originating from a body. Then there are no sensations, there's only perceptions. And you're walking up the scale of the 5 skandhas, which is another Buddhist teaching. Okay. So there is no body as an objective fact. There's the experience of the body, concept of the body, fine. The moment I say it's an objective fact, I introduce suffering into the mix. If it's not, then it's just a flow of energy and I'm free. So I don't have to seek enlightenment. There are no enlightened beings. D.T. Suzuki, the famous Zen master, said, there are no enlightened beings, there's only enlightened moments. So who gets enlightened? Your heart, the question you're answering is coming from your heart, which is longing to be free. And you've encountered enough of the Dharma to understand that that's what enlightenment means. Right? But now we have to stop seeing enlightenment as a state that you attain, right, which puts it out there somewhere, and recognize that it is you right, excuse me, that is you right now, right? And there's only a thought that you're not. That's it. Only the thought. Let go of the thought that you're anything other than the Buddha self, and it's game over. Now, we've associated and given all sorts of meaning to enlightenment. We've associated, the big events, right? The Ramana Maharshis or Buddha, the great story of Buddha under the Bodhi tree, which is primarily mythological. I mean, really, he really did do it. There really was a person, but a lot of the story around it is illustrative. It's mythological. It's supposed to be historical. So if you put aside all of the expectations of all the stories that you've heard, so you're not dealing with anything except your own experience, you'll find enlightenment is already present. In fact, enlightenment or awakening is what's hearing my words right now. Enlightenment is simply consciousness, that which is aware, completely freed of all conceptual thought. Give up all conceptual thought about enlightenment, that is, about yourself. To study Zen is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. I went all the way to the absolute on that one. Hopefully I read you right and that you were ready for that. Robin Pepper, I find myself in stillness listening to the singing birds. Found myself in stillness listening to the singing birds yesterday. I finally allowed myself to feel and think the thoughts I've had towards a few of my most intimate relationships without judging. Oh. It as bad as usually I default to, without judging it as badly as I usually default to. I sat and wept in the loving freedom of it all. Oh. I so appreciate you, GP. You continued pointing has had a profound impact on my experience. Oh, thank you, Robin. That's the enlightened moment. When the heart opens and you find places in you that were still in bitterness and pain, maybe regret, and suddenly it's lessened. It doesn't even have to be gone, but it's lessened. It's like something has opened. Something is freeing itself. That's enlightenment, folks. That's awakening. That's it. And nothing's really awakening. The clouds are just clearing away. our vision is just totally fogged, right? Minds are cluttered. Does that mean mind is impure? Or there's just clutter there? And you're looking at the thoughts. Is the consciousness that's looking at the thoughts any less the consciousness? If it's looking at beautiful scene or at horrible scene, if it's having a wonderful memory or a terrible memory, is the consciousness itself any different? We just have these ideas that somehow enlightenment means this is all bliss and none of this happens. Not true. Enlightenment is recognizing that all of it is the self. All of it is emerging. The consciousness that knows this and the consciousness that knows that, in all of its opposites, is the same, which means it's beyond opposites, isn't it? It's nothing that you can pinpoint. Nothing, no description can capture it. But yet you just were it. This is the experience. It's nothing out there. It's this. It's this moment of the heart opening and weeping. That's it. We open all their heads and just kind of pound it in. Oh, Robin, thank you. That does my heart so much good. Oh, makes me so happy to hear that. Mary Sykes, thank you, GP. Sometimes the nervous system seems to lash out vehemently. Yes, it will. It will. You know, think of it like, the rescue dog, right? I went to pet a dog yesterday. I was visiting my sister, and it was a cute little dog. So I bent down, I let him smell my hand a bit, and I just moved and he and jumped away. And the man told me he was a rescue dog. He'd been terribly abused as a puppy and the like, and he was working on it, right? And so that's what happened. I made a wrong move or something. I'm very subtle. I know how to deal with animals. You're very careful about it. So, I mean, it didn't bite me or anything, but that's what you're dealing with. That's what the nervous system is. It's the animal nature, right? Which we have to transcend. And we transcend it through loving awareness, through loving it, right? Understanding what it is, and which means we don't beat ourselves up. Simple. You fly off the handle at somebody or something really intense inside, some big fear comes up. What do? You sit with it. You say, welcome, come. It's really difficult, but come, let's have tea. Tea with me. Lisa, I can walk you through some additional ways to support along this journey. Good old Lisa. We're launching a new program very, 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 very soon that we're both going to participate in, it's not going to be for everybody, but for many. It'll be a very special program with a lot of personal attention from myself and Lisa. It's actually quite structured, but we'll tell people about it later. Purple Vani, thank you for this, GP. Love from Scotland. Yvonne, love from Yvonne. And Purple Vani, okay, that's where the Vani came. Okay. Thanks for the answer, GP. I'll try not to get stuck in my head. Good, yeah. It's, we live in a time that is where there's just so much, the attempts to capture and hold our attention are just unprecedented. And everybody's got a story to tell. And as a result, they want us to believe that story, right? To enlist us, to sell us something, to vote for something, to hate something, to fear something. And so we have to take conscious charge of what we're allowing in, and we have to do it by not becoming too dependent on thought. We cannot think our way out of this stuff. Discernment is not thought. That quality we possess that can distinguish between two things is not a thought. The intelligence of the essential mind that is looking at thoughts and discerning their character, that's not a thought. So thinking cannot figure this out. To understand, that's depending if I can get the right thought about it. There is no right thought about it. Thoughts are constantly changing. They're descriptive, right? So there'll never be a right thought. There'll never be a true story. That which is discerning whether it's a true story or not is the truth. What else could it be? But it can't be our concept of what truth is, or our ideas, or the things we've, some ideology or something, or theology we've decided on, because then that's just another thought system that gets stuck. And now we're assessing not directly from our intimate personal knowledge of truth, but through a distorted perception of some ideological system. That's why thought cannot be trusted. It can be used, but you can't look to it for answers. And it can be very clever and philosophical, but it'll get you nowhere. Right? Go to the feeling, go to the direct experience. Going to the body first is a place I always take people first, to get into the actual feeling of things. And it can get subtler and subtler till you go beyond the body as feeling and emotion to this other dimension that's beyond even that, but it's very real, very detectable, very knowable. Right? And beyond that, of course, is you, the absolute. Timur, namaste, GP. My meditation teacher here in Berlin has suggested that I fake it until I make it. We've not gone into depth of what he meant yet, but every time I think that I'm already enlightened, all my thoughts stop for a minute, and I start seeing the world in awe, love, and wonder. What is your take on that? I'm really curious. Thank you. I like that. Fake it until you make it. I've heard that said by numerous Zen teachers. What it means is that the truth of your being is that you are already the Buddha mind. That's the truth. So everything that denies that is false. It's just not true. And all of the systems of thought and theories and religions and spiritual practices that have emerged from that are not true. They're not the absolute. At best, they're skillful means at best. So the truth is the truth is the truth. So if fake it till you make it, if you sit to meditate and you meditate as the Buddha, this is the Buddha meditating, even though your whole sense of identity will be saying, no, you're not. You're going to get there, though. If you sit long enough, you're going to get there, right? That's, if you go, no, I am that. I already am that. And you start breathing into that, this breath, breathing in as the Buddha. I breathe out as the Buddha. I am present as the Buddha. What else is the consciousness that is aware even of all those arguing thoughts if that consciousness is not the Buddha? The Buddha was not a historical person. Well, was not, the reality of the Buddha was not Siddhartha. It was not this person that lived 2,500 years ago. The reality of the Buddha is the awakened one. You on your cushion, aware of yourself, aware of those thoughts, are the awakened one. Who else would it be? There's not somebody else sitting on that chair. The consciousness, or on that cushion, the consciousness is the Buddha. Consciousness itself is Buddha. So in a sense, you're faking it until you make it, which simply means this is what I am, and this is my story, and I'm sticking to it, even though all my habit patterns, my thought patterns, my beliefs, everything everybody's telling me around me is telling me it's not true. that you might be one day. You just got to keep working at it. But if you just keep working at it to that one day will never come, because it is not something that is gained. It's what you are. You cannot gain what you are. So I am that already. And my mind goes, no, you're not. And you go, I am that which is aware of all the thoughts that tell me I'm not. I'm that which is aware of this cushion that I'm sitting on. I'm that which is aware of the Buddha. Can the Buddha exist outside of my mind? Nothing exists outside of my mind. And my mind is the Buddha. Huang Po says it just like that. Your mind is the Buddha. That is, that sitting down, the consciousness, the awareness, that which is taking it all in, that's it. Direct. It's as direct as you can get. I'm assuming that's what he means by fake it until you make it. Don't let go of that. Don't entertain any thought that there's a journey that has to be made. It just prolongs. In truth, there's no practice needed. There's no nothing. Now, don't stop practicing, but you get it, right? You get that. Yes, I'm practicing. What am I practicing? Oh no, I'm not practicing to become a Buddha. That practice will go on for kalpas, ages upon ages upon ages. That practice will never stop. How can I possibly become what I already am? That will never go anywhere. But practicing as the Buddha? Wow. Okay. I am that. And I sit on that. This is what is meant by Buddha sitting in this place and not moving from it. I will not move until I found the answer to suffering. You're sitting on that. I will not move until. So it doesn't mean you don't get up off the cushion, right? It means that's it. I am just anchoring myself in that as the truth. And even if I don't realize it yet, even if everything is telling me I'm not, this is faith. I take the teachers at their word, and I sit as that. And when you do that, don't make it too mental. Just keep watching, keep in touch with the consciousness, keep watching it, and stuff will come up. Pains, memories, traumas. Ajahn Chah, the Thai forest Buddhist monk, would say, if you haven't wept deeply, you haven't meditated yet. So when the stuff comes up, and it will come up, right? It comes up to the Buddha. And you want it to come up. You're there for it to come up. You're not trying to get away from human life. You're trying to embrace it. Right? Your intention is to completely embrace it in the heart. That's my take on it, Timur. Oscar, if there's any I that would love you, gee. I'll take it. Jacqueline Grew, it's here, it's now, full stop, mic drop. Yes. Oh, my lovelies. My lovely, lovely, lovelies. Looks like the questions are dwindling away. So I will now dwindle away into my afternoon. And love being with you guys. I just love being with you guys. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining me for tea. And I'll see you again in 2 weeks if we don't do some kind of program before that. So bye for now.